All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll give everybody about 30 more seconds to join in. Get comfortable. Get your last cup of coffee for the morning, possibly, or the first cup of coffee for the afternoon. All right. Welcome to the Just Us Coordinate Council Speaker Series. My name is Joshua Johnson. I serve as a director within JFF in our Solutions Design and Delivery area. And I'm also a proud member of the Just Us Coordinated Council. Before my current role here at JFF, I was the state director of apprenticeship in the state of Wisconsin, as well as the vice president for NASDAQ, the National Association of State and Territorial Apprenticeship Directors. And even before that, I was an apprentice. I am a proud construction craft laborer, journey worker, as well as a current union member with Liuna Local 113. I also have had direct experience with the criminal legal system, and that's why today's conversation is so meaningful to me around apprenticeships, because I've seen firsthand how opportunities like apprenticeships can open doors, create real economic opportunity, and help people rebuild their lives. The JCC is the first national policy table created entirely by and for people who've been impacted by the criminal legal system. Over the last 2 years, we built something powerful, a space where lived experience is treated as real expertise, a space where everyone is welcome and has a seat at the table. Whether you've been directly impacted or work alongside those who have, you are a part of this community. Today's event is all about apprenticeships, what they are, why they matter, and how they can be a pathway to good careers and lasting stability. We'll hear from two incredible leaders in this work who will break down federal resources, how federal resources can be used to support apprentices and advocates. They'll also spotlight some exciting efforts in Maryland to better connect resources with the needs of people who have been system impacted. Have the pleasure of being joined by my very good friend and a new friend of mine. I'm being joined by Chris McLarian, who's the director of apprenticeships and training for the Maryland Department of Labor. And then my new friend, John Carroll, who was a registered apprentice and now is a journey worker with the Maryland Iron Workers Local 5 and a prestigious recipient or recent recipient, of the prestigious Governor's Citation. Before we dive into today's session and this great conversation, I want you all to know, throw comments or questions and comments in the chat. Please do that. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. We'd love to hear from you as we go through this presentation. But I want to take a moment to orient those of you joining us today to exactly why the JCC is truly a first of its kind approach to policy. So as you can see, the JCC is a national federal policy table led by and created for individuals who are directly impacted. The JCC forms the connective tissue needed to catalyze full participation in policy practices and changes for formerly incarcerated people and directly impacted individuals in their communities. Next slide, please. So our why. Why do we do this? I mean, I know why I do it. I know why Zach does. I know why other individuals who engage do it. But there's a big why. And that why is the voices of the most impacted by the criminal legal system have been missing or excluded from the decision-making tables. Now, I want to be clear here. Being missing or excluded can still mean that you're sitting at the table. So we want to make sure that those that are impacted, they're not just sitting there, they're actually able to talk and have a conversation. So that's the why. We want to make sure we're being a voice for the voiceless and getting people to those tables. Next slide, please. Our priorities. So our priorities are simple. They're collateral sanctions. We're looking at housing, sentencing, employment, which today will be a big focus on employment with apprenticeships, and health and well-being. So one of those several federal priorities is employment equity. And we've heard it constantly had a conversation about, we've heard it talked about. And we know that to be successful after incarceration, employment has to play a part in that. Now, there's other factors in it as well, but we know that employment is one of the number one things that dictates the success of an individual after they've been incarcerated. So what we want to talk about today with apprenticeships is looking at the paid work training component, which is a concept essential to economic mobility, but it's often limited by both access to funding as well as challenging business landscapes. So we know both of these realities perpetuate poverty for people with conviction histories. So today we're going to talk about the myths about apprenticeships that may prevent impacted job seekers from applying. Local apprenticeship programs may assume that they are not equipped to serve the holistic needs of the apprentice. And then lastly, job training and skill building opportunities in carceral settings are limited in many ways. Next slide, please. So here's where we get to today. We're centered back to the people. That's what our focus is at Just Us, is really trying to center on the people. We want to make sure that we're creating a difference. We want to make sure as our council that we're having the conversations that are going to create difference for individuals who have been incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, or who have been system impacted directly or indirectly. And we know that having this conversation, or we hope, I should say, we hope that having this conversation will lead to additional conversations by each and every one of you that are on the call, that you take it back to your networks, that you take it back to your organizations, that you take it back to your friends and family, and talk about how to engage the apprenticeship system, although you've been formerly incarcerated or directly or indirectly system impacted. So today's session is going to center on the most impacted as we highlight new policies and resources, explore advocacy opportunities, and connect with intermediaries from federal government. So we'll be talking about that, having those conversations throughout. Next slide, please. So we're going to first kick it off here with my work in registered apprenticeship. Let's talk about what apprenticeship is. Kind of like an apprenticeship 101 as we kind of go through this. But we know that apprenticeship is talked about a lot, a whole lot. But we also know that apprenticeship is very misunderstood at times. Many times people confuse apprenticeship with internship. So that's why I want to throw this first slide up here. We want to talk about types of work-based learning strategies. Registered apprenticeship, right on top, right? We know that there's people out there who are doing non-registered apprenticeships. There are companies who are saying this is an apprenticeship, but that's non-registered. We know that registered apprenticeship is the cream of the crop. That's the golden ticket. But we also know that there's pre-apprenticeship. We know that there's youth apprenticeship. We know that there's on-the-job training, work-based learning. We know there's customized and incumbent worker training. We also know there are work experiences and internships, and we know that there are transitional jobs. Now, each and every one of those that I just highlighted can all be a part of registered apprenticeship. And I think that's one of the most important parts of this conversation, is understanding that many times if you're eligible for those other areas, those other experiences, you are eligible for registered apprenticeship as well. And let's kind of set the record straight what apprenticeship is. Apprenticeship is a structured training outline. I know it has the word program behind it, and that really confuses everybody. It throws everybody off when they hear registered apprenticeship program. They think they sign up and they're on a waiting list. It's not how it is. It's a structured training outline that employers utilize to build their incumbent workforce or to attract in a strong talent pipeline. So just keep that in mind as we kind of go through this and talk about it. And please drop questions in as well as you have questions about apprenticeship. Next slide, please. So there's 5 qualities about apprenticeship that have been highlighted by USDOL, as well as highlighted in many conversations that we have. And these 5 qualities fall under quality, rigor, and standards. We know, as I talked about, apprenticeships are a paid job. So from day one, when you are a registered apprentice, you're paid. You're paid as if you're paid as a worker at that organization. And in some states like Wisconsin, where I'm formerly from, we actually required that the apprentice was paid while they went to school, their related training instruction. We'll talk about that a little bit here on the third bubble here. But you're automatically paid, so you are an employee of the company before you can start an apprenticeship program. Like you can start at the same time, but you're making money. I want to keep emphasizing that apprenticeships are paid. So apprentices, they earn a competitive wage from their employers during training. Apprenticeship is work-based learning. So this is an opportunity where programs provide structured on-the-job learning to prepare for a successful career. So the next piece of this is the classroom learning. And I always used to say it's 90-10. Some people say it's 80-20, 90% on the job, 10% in the classroom. So classroom learning is the apprentices are provided with classroom instruction, which is known as related training instruction, is the most popular. You hear the phrase RTI, on the critical aspects of the careers. The best thing about the classroom learning that is tied to an apprenticeship, it's all relevant and directly correlates to the occupation that you're currently working in your apprenticeship program. Mentorship, the fourth piece of it is mentorship. Apprentices receive on-the-job training under the instruction of an experienced mentor. So many companies have found a way and identified how they could get a good mentor, somebody that can help an individual who comes in and help them grow within the organization, help them understand what it means to be an apprentice, help them understand what it means to be a journey worker. And then lastly, one of the most important things, and I even share this with my own kids, the credentials. The apprentices earn a portable, nationally recognized credential within the industry. I still have that portable national credential, and I'll have it for the rest of my life. I don't plan on building highways ever again, but if I wanted to, I could walk back onto any job site in America and in other parts of the world, in U.S. territories, and I walk into those jobs and I'm making top dollar. I'm making whatever the journey worker rate is. And that's for the rest of my life because of that apprenticeship that I served. So that portable credential is very valuable to individuals because they can start an apprenticeship here and want to move there, and it helps them out. There's other components as well that are tied into these, right? We know there's safety and quality. Apprenticeships are built with quality. That this isn't just some thrown together training program. It's quality. It's industry vetted. Industry has a voice in these programs. And then lastly, we know that it allows individual employers to create very diverse and talented pipelines, meaning they attract everyone. Everyone is able to engage with them to become an apprentice. Next slide, please. So I spent a lot of time on that last slide, a lot more than I planned on it, but I wanted to set the foundation. So now as we talk about this, is this map that's shown here. This map is indicative of what we in the apprenticeship world know as the SAA, State Approving Agency, and OA, Office of Apprenticeship Map. So what you'll see is the states in blue. Those are all the SAA states. I was from Wisconsin. I was an SAA state. Chris is from, and you'll hear from Chris, he's from Maryland. He's an SAA state. The difference of an SAA and OA state, SAA states have a singular state director that everything gets approved through that state director. The Office of Apprenticeship, or OA states, are at the federal level, and they go through a federal process. They still have a singular director, but the process is just a little bit different as you're kind of building your programs out in the conversations that you may be having with SAA states. For instance, as I shared, many states across the country, whether SA or OA, don't require, like in Wisconsin, to pay your apprentices. So you'll see all of the states and territories highlighted in blue there, to include Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands. You'll see them off to the side there. You'll see all of those states in blue, and those states have that singular point of contact that you can reach out to. Next slide, please. So as we kind of boogie along here, like I said, I'm doing Apprenticeship 101, so I'm kind of doing the truncated version so we can talk to our fantastic friends, Chris and John. So there's 4 key roles in the apprenticeship world. Number 1 is the most important role, I will say, which is employers. We can train 1 million people and get them prepared to go into an apprenticeship program, but if we only have 900,000 jobs openings or job availabilities, that means 100,000 people are going to be sitting. I use those gigantic numbers just because at the end of the day, I want everyone to understand that you have to have that employer buy-in. That's the most important part. That's the chicken and the egg, right? We have to have the employer, and then we can bring in individuals. But those employers can use new hires or incumbents for apprenticeship. And they're going to be the provider of that on-the-job learning and the work-based learning. The second part is the administrator. And sometimes the employer can be that administrator as well. Just all depends on the structure and what the state requires. But that administrator, the sponsor of the apprenticeship program, they're responsible for administering the program, making sure the apprentices are successful. That can be an employer or a consortia of employers, and so industry associations or joint labor management organizations, which we see that in the construction field. That is the prime way. It's joint apprenticeship training committees. Educational or training providers, CBOs, or other workforce intermediaries. The third component or third role of apprenticeship is the educational provider. Remember, I talked about you have to have an employer because it's work-based learning. You have to have an educational arm as well. There are 144 hours required of educational hours per year of an apprenticeship program. And that education has to be provided by a related training instructor. So that can be employer industry based, that can be tied to the joint labor organizations, but many times we see it's the community colleges or technical colleges in your area. We're seeing universities, four-year universities. We're seeing minority serving institutions to include HBCUs, tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institutions step into that conversation as well and be providers of related training instruction, but it also can be nonprofits. It's all about the process through your state to get approved. And lastly, the public workforce system. This is where, for me, and what I saw in Wisconsin, what Chris has seen, and what others have seen across the country, that public workforce system is where individuals get the apprenticeship prep, they get the knowledge, the basic knowledge they need to qualify for a registered apprenticeship program. So we know that that public workforce system, whether it's WIOA, the workforce development boards, sometimes it's chambers, it's everyone, all that public workforce system plays this central role in many communities in getting people skilled up and ready to go into a registered apprenticeship. Next slide, please. And this is just to highlight kind of what I just talked about, right? And we talked about the roles and that last one, the public workforce system and what is needed, right? So thinking about additional partners, CBOs, youth organizations, faith-based organizations, workforce boards, high schools and charter schools, community colleges, unions, nonprofits. So anybody can be a partner in the apprenticeship conversation. We've seen more and more people come out, obviously, since the historic investment that was made back in the mid 2010s into apprenticeship. We've seen, I don't know, close to $1 billion, if not over $1 billion invested in the apprenticeship system over, 4 presidential terms. And what we're seeing is additional partners stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, how can I play a part and play a role in the registered apprenticeship conversation? Next slide, please. So as I wrap up here, before we prepare to go on to Chris, I want to do some myth versus reality. So many conversations you don't even understand in the past 20 years that I've had, and more specifically in the past 10 years of when I've been, whether it's state director or engaged in the apprenticeship system and working with employers. There's so many myths out there about what apprenticeship is and what it is and how it actually works. So these are just 3 quick brief ones right here. Apprenticeships are only for construction or union jobs. It's a myth. The reality is apprenticeships, they've been associated with the trades, whether it's construction, manufacturing. Construction holds the majority of apprenticeship contracts in America. Most apprentices are in construction, with manufacturing right behind. But then now we see it spans diverse industries like healthcare, IT, finance, education, cybersecurity, agriculture, transportation. Like so many other industry areas have opened up and they've become more receptive to registered apprenticeship programs. And moreover, many programs are non-union and tailored to specific employer needs. So they're not just construction or union jobs. They can be any job as long as they meet the requirements of a registered apprenticeship program. 2,000 hours on the job learning in a year, 144 hours of schooling required, and then the job is typically learned on the job. Second myth here, apprenticeships are too expensive or time-consuming for employers. False. The reality is setting up a registered apprenticeship program is often cost-effective. Employers can access tax credits, grants, and supportive services through their states, through those partners that they can engage with. Additionally, this is just some information as they continue to do research about what that investment looks like. For every $1 invested, employers see an average return of $1.44, benefiting from the increased productivity and reduced turnover. And then lastly, the last myth I want to share with you today is apprenticeships are only for entry-level roles. False. Reality is apprenticeships now cover a range of positions from entry-level to advanced roles, including those requiring degrees or certifications. They are also used to upskill existing employees for higher level positions. So those are just 3 quick myths that I wanted to share with you all and share what the reality is. And I hope that they spark some conversation and spark some question. Next slide, please. All right, I wrap up and say thank you. There's my contact information. Please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me if you have any questions, if you're looking to build a program, if you're trying to understand more about how apprenticeship can be beneficial to individuals who've been impacted, formerly incarcerated or justice impacted, please feel free to reach out to me and we can have that conversation. All right. I am so ready to bring on my very good friend, Director Chris McClarion. All right. So, across the country, workforce development professionals and policymakers alike have seen firsthand the power of apprenticeships. While apprenticeships have grown over 85% nationwide, not every state embraces the potential of apprenticeships in the same way. In my time in this space, like I've had the opportunities to get to know so many champions, whether they're businesses, whether they're state directors, workforce boards, it's just stakeholders or people in general who just love the idea of apprenticeships across the country. And our first guest today is certainly no different among them. Chris McClarion serves as the Director of Training and Apprenticeships within the Maryland Department of Labor. In this role, he administers a wide variety of resources, programs, and policies to create meaningful pathways to training and employment. Chris is also, as I said, the Vice President of the National Association of State and Territorial Apprenticeship Directors. So Chris is leading national efforts and national conversations to create continuity within the national apprenticeship system. It is my true pleasure to welcome to the conversation my friend, my brother, Director Chris McClarion, and we look forward to learning more about your work, Chris. The floor is all yours, brother.
So thank you, Joshua. I really do appreciate it. Definitely flattered. Really happy to be here. And thank you and the JCC team for having me. And I see on camera coming up next following me, John Carroll. And I can only say I'm excited to hear John talk, for everybody to hear his story. It's definitely impacted my life personally, just like yours has, Joshua. And I'll mention that in a little bit. I will start with this slide and just say that Joshua mentioned Maryland. We are a state apprenticeship agency. We have been a state apprenticeship agency since 1962. So we're over 60 years into doing this as a state. What I do find exciting is that we still work with our fellow partners from the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Apprenticeship. So when Joshua talks about national policy and direction, it is really exciting to be able to work with other states, with the federal government to figure out where we're going, how do we grow our system, how do we make it more inclusive, and how do we make it so that everybody has an opportunity to get into the apprenticeship system and then graduate from it. So I think that's a big component is the completion of an apprenticeship. So with that, if we can launch right into the next slide. So I'm going to attempt to not duplicate too much what Joshua said, but there is a common question that I think we hear a lot, at least at the state apprenticeship agency level. We work with our partners, the nonprofits, public school systems, teachers, pretty much anybody that's a job seeker is who can be an apprentice? Can I be an apprentice? Who can do an apprenticeship? And the reality is while I won't do a deep dive into the basics of apprenticeship today, I do want to say that apprenticeship is for everybody. An apprenticeship won't be what it is today or can't be what it is today without people. And those people are, the apprentices, the job seekers, the mentors, the journey workers that are training the apprentice, teachers, business owners, the associations, the unions, and the government entities that all participate in it. All of these are made up by people. Without those people, apprenticeships don't work. As you're going to see today from some personal examples, as well as from the PowerPoints themselves, apprenticeship really is for everybody. And what makes it unique, Joshua talked about a couple, is it's not a train and pray system. And I think that is something that the workforce system itself has struggled with over the years. We can design training, we can put people into training, and they're great opportunities, but they don't necessarily lead exactly right into employment. And if you're leaving a training while you're still looking for a job, it's a little bit of a disconnect. The great thing about registered apprenticeship is you're starting from paid employment day one. Now I will differ just a little bit with my good friend Joshua. He mentioned about how registered apprenticeship is a job, and I agree it is a job, but I do want to emphasize something. It's just a job at day one. But when you graduate, you're in a career. It's a job that leads to a career. And I think if we can do anything as a system, and everybody on the call that's listening, all of us that are participating, is to continue to emphasize to our partners that these are careers. We can all get a job tomorrow, but when Josh went through his apprenticeship with Leona, He landed in a career, and that career path led him to where he's at a webinar today, far from when he was a construction craft laborer graduate out of an apprenticeship program. That career path can morph and evolve and build different skill sets, and I think that's important to remember. I'll also say when we emphasize that, it goes back into the community. We emphasize the career path that apprenticeship leads us on. It's good for the school counselors, the job seekers, the students themselves, parents who are looking for a pathway for their child. If we think about these as career paths, we push people into the career themselves and not just into the college system, which can be great, but we all know it's not for everybody. And I will say, as you look at the slide, apprenticeship is employer driven. Without an employer, we don't have that job at day one that Joshua mentioned. And those mandatory components, we have them in Maryland as well. Paid employment from day one, the related instruction, the coursework, the theory, the theoretical knowledge that supports the career path the apprentice is on, what they're learning on the job. And just as importantly, if that career path involves a license, it involves a certification, a credential, it's included in the apprenticeship program. You graduate with everything you need to be a journey worker in that occupation. And when those components are all combined, the paid employment, the on-the-job training, that coursework, and the business, when all those things are combined, we graduate a highly skilled and educated worker that can do all facets of the occupation that they're in. And to me, one of the best parts is, at least in Maryland, it sounds like in Wisconsin as well, and I think this is the theme throughout the country, the vast majority of our graduates, it occurs at no real cost to the apprentice. So, I mean, that is a huge barrier removal, and you'll hear some stories in the next few minutes. But for an individual that's entering an apprenticeship without a lot of resources, you can't afford to put out a lot of money to start a job training program. And that's one of the things that makes apprenticeship so unique and so open to all of us in the country. We can skip forward to the next slide. So Joshua mentioned, you saw the slide about the state apprenticeship agencies, the Office of Apprenticeship States, and there's great work going on all over this country. From the East Coast, the West Coast, the middle side of our country, there is great work, and including our territories, by the way, I shouldn't leave them out. So the U.S. territories are also apprenticeship programs. So it's more than just the 50 states. There is a great work going on in the registered apprenticeship system everywhere. And I want to highlight that, but I also really want to talk about Maryland, because that's what I know best because I'm here. A couple of the things that I think is important to impress upon us as we look at how the system's growing. Josh mentioned like 85% growth. Maryland is very similar. In 2016, we had about 7,000 apprentices. Today, we have a little over 12,300. But what's more exciting about it is the age. The age of an apprentice has traditionally been a little bit older, somewhere between 28 and 30 years old to start. We are seeing a growing youth movement within the apprenticeship system. And last year, we had nearly 1,500 high school apprentices in our youth program, with a couple hundred of those starting the formal registered apprenticeship program while they're still in high school. Giving an opportunity for a high school student to graduate and be just 2 or 3 years away from a journey worker license as an electrician or a plumber, making career money at 20, 21, 22 years old, buying their first homes, and reducing that gap of distance between starting their career and graduating high school. So it's been pretty exciting, that growth from 7,000 to 12,000. But equally exciting, maybe to me a little bit more exciting, is the number of graduates that we have in our system. In 2016, we were graduating a little less than 900 apprentices. The last several years, we're graduating over 2,000 a year. As our system's growing, we're producing more and more graduates from the apprenticeship program. That means more and more people entering the workforce as a career, also with career wages. So Maryland, we do track everything through our unemployment data and through our wage data. Our last wage survey showed that the average graduate in Maryland is making a little bit over $82,000 a year. Pretty impressive. It means there's some making more, some making less, obviously, but $82,000 is kind of one of those phrases that I want to really emphasize because, again, we're talking career earnings. And the more that we can attract this to, or we can open these up for individuals that need these opportunities, whether we're talking about those that were formerly incarcerated, we're talking about new Americans, we're talking about high school graduates, in some cases, individuals who may not have completed high school, it offers them an opportunity to succeed, and it offers them an opportunity to have a career no matter what their background may have or may not have been. And it's a growing number of occupations that's occurring. So we can slide to the next slide, please. So Joshua busted a myth for us, and I'm going to reinforce as how we should be busting that myth. And it's that construction is the only apprenticeship out there, which, in the face of it, this slide would seem to be reinforcing the myth. What I'll say is construction has been the bedrock, or the foundation of registered apprenticeship since forever, since the dawn of time, but really since the 1930s when the formal registered apprenticeship system began. And if I remember correctly, Wisconsin was the first state to adopt it, and I'm pretty certain that in the early 1930s when they brought this model on, construction was also their bedrock. And that's exciting. And it's important to say that in Maryland, it still is the bedrock, and a little bit over 80% of our apprentices are in the skilled trades. But we are seeing a divergence from it. We are seeing a growing number of new occupations that are coming out and open themselves up for the registered apprenticeship pathway. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but I can't emphasize enough some of the opportunities that come out of construction. Because while we do want to see a continued growth of occupations, industries, and opportunities, I do want to say one thing, and we're going to hear again, from John in a minute, and I'm going to have something at the very end. But construction has been a forgiving market in many cases for individuals that may have barriers that otherwise keep them out of different positions or careers. Construction has been one of the more forgiving occupations if you have a justice involved background. They really embrace those that want to work and come in and can stick with the on-the-job training and the education. And I want to say that while I'm happy to see that our numbers are shifting and we're having more and more occupations come in, I don't want to let go of the idea that construction still produces highly skilled workers with really good wages, and it opens up a lot of career opportunities for individuals who otherwise might not have had one. So if we can slide to the next one, or go to the next slide, I should say. So I did not list everything that we have in Maryland, but what I'm going to do is just talk about a couple really quick. We talked about the growing number of occupations, industries, employers that are not in the construction market. And it really is exciting. Maryland has 16 community colleges, and the vast majority of those colleges are either a registered apprenticeship sponsor or they work directly with registered apprenticeship programs in some capacity. Our community colleges, as they've embraced registered apprenticeship, have begun to do things like occupations in biotechnology, early childhood education, hospitality management, IT, cybersecurity, accounting, finance, and so many others. And what's been really interesting is that when a college degree is required, they embed the degree within the apprenticeship. So we have graduates from an apprenticeship program that are leaving with an associate's degree. And that associate's degree and that work experience combined, what it ends up doing is it replaces a bachelor's degree. And we're seeing a continued growth in that. And just as exciting is that does appeal to the school system. It appeals to parents and the PTA and the school counselors, is we still have the opportunity to have somebody in college, but also in a career path at the exact same time. We're reducing the debt load for the graduate and for the household. And again, in Maryland, almost all of this is at no cost to the apprentice. And where we don't have a degree path within a community college themselves, we're seeing an increasing number of those colleges offer articulated credits to the graduates of the construction program or to any registered apprenticeship program. And in Maryland, we see graduates from a bona fide registered apprenticeship program get anywhere from 18 to 35 college credits upon graduation. So you're somewhere between a third and over half of the way to an associate's degree if you decide that there's a point in your life where you want to go back to school, you want to get a college degree. And that's also pretty exciting. And again, at no cost. So if we could move to the last slide. So this is a hold slide, and I really want to emphasize one thing. Apprenticeship works. Apprenticeship works. As you heard from Joshua, it really can help you to re-enter the workforce and to land with a career. And we're going to hear that again in a minute, because it truly is for everybody, or it can be for everybody. Where Joshua started his career, had some justice involved issues. You'll hear from John in a minute with a similar story. One went to LaUna, one went to the Iron Workers Union. These stories, one's Wisconsin, one's Maryland, they repeat themselves around our country. And we have to have a system that's designed to give everybody an opportunity. And when you return, whether it's from changing a career, starting over, whether you're suffering from a divorce and you need to enter the workforce, you're graduating high school, leaving the military, there has to be a career path for everybody. Registered apprenticeship is the way you do it. And in Maryland, we're very fortunate. What we have done is largely we copied off of two states. We copied off of Wisconsin and New York to how their staff structure was set up, what their success numbers were, how they embedded staff across their state. And we replicated that in Maryland with some twist. So in Maryland in 2016, we had 2.5 staff that covered the entire state for apprenticeship. Today we have 26. And those apprenticeship navigators are embedded in the county. They work with our local school system. They work with our local American Job Centers, our local workforce development areas, all of the partners of the apprenticeship system to build apprenticeship programs to help bring in employers, help grow high quality apprenticeships. But we've also worked with our partners throughout the system. In the Maryland Department of Labor, we have something called a reentry navigator. It's just like what it sounds like. These are individuals that help those that were justice involved or re-enter in the workforce, they were formerly incarcerated, re-enter into employment, and of course what we want, the highest level of employment, which is a registered apprenticeship program. And our reentry navigators help directly connect an individual right into an apprenticeship program. And they've had great success helping to connect dozens of people into an apprenticeship where they start day one as a job making money, but ending in a career. Within the correctional system in Maryland, we have an apprenticeship program for those who are currently incarcerated where they learn the occupation of meat cutter. We've had various occupations over the years, but this allows an individual while they're incarcerated to learn a career, and it has all the same components. They do get paid, they have education, they have on-the-job training, they get a credential, they get certifications, and upon graduation, they can enter the workforce directly. It's pretty exciting. And I'm going to drop a link in a little bit to some success stories for our website as well. We've also used our grant funding to try to pursue innovative ideas and to try to find ways to further connect opportunities for apprenticeship to where otherwise they might be forgotten. And the USDOL, the U.S. Department of Labor, has been great about issuing grants or awarding grants to expand apprenticeship programs. And Maryland's been fortunate to receive, I want to say, a little bit over $25 million in the last 9 or 10 years. And we've used that money to put out grants to expand healthcare apprenticeships, to expand non-traditional apprenticeships, to do pre-apprenticeship grants for organizations that were doing pre-apprenticeship for women, for veterans, and for others. Those who were previously incarcerated that needed an opportunity to get in. We've used those grants, in state funding, I should say, to do a foster youth program. So I don't know if this is that way everywhere in the country, but in Maryland, foster youth get free community college. We created an apprenticeship program for foster youth where they can go into an apprenticeship program and the grant would bear those costs as well. We've used our grant funding to do public service apprenticeships to help start government programs so that we can have apprenticeship in the public sector as well. There's lots of opportunities to use federal funding. We've been fortunate in Maryland that we've been able to touch on a lot of different areas to expand that. And then last, it's the people. And if you go to our success site, you'll see where we've had new Americans that have gone through an apprenticeship and they bought their first home or they bought their first car. We'll see some stories about students that started off and launched into their career through an apprenticeship program. And then, as Joshua's going to introduce my good friend and one of the few apprentices that I've met over the years and ended up with their phone number and stuck together with, is John Carroll. And I'm not going to talk much about John. I met him during his apprenticeship. It was a bit of an awkward meeting due to me trying to survey the crowd. And I asked John a question, and I won't go too much into that. But essentially, I was trying to show my staff how it's important to bridge the gap between the job seeker, the apprentice, the day they entered apprenticeship and the day they graduated high school. And I'd asked all the apprentices in the room how long it had been since they started their apprenticeship. John was the only one that didn't answer. And I had said, how many of you started within a year of high school, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Well, John didn't answer. And I wasn't sure at that point whether John was a little sullen in the back, whether he just didn't want to talk. And I did the one cardinal rule you're not supposed to break. I broke immediately, which is if you don't know the answer to a question, don't ask it. So I said to John, how long has it been since you graduated high school? And John said 25 years. And I was like, this is my perfect example. He's been working out there somewhere, a low-wage job. I'm going to make this a bridge connection. And I asked John what took him so long to find the iron workers. And he looked right at me and said, I had no choice. I was in prison. And I about fainted. I thought for sure I ruined his career. I thought I exposed him. And everybody will tell you that knows me. We have 2 rules when you work for me. It's don't lie, don't steal. Anything else we can work out as a team. And I turned to the training director. I looked him right in the eyes, and I said, I made up a story. And I said, under Maryland law, whatever he says to me in an open meeting like this, you can't use against him for his apprenticeship. And the training director kind of shrugged and said, we love John. Everybody knows his story. He talks about it all the time. He came here highly recommended. And that was a huge turning point for me in understanding how some of our construction apprenticeships, others look at somebody and look at their background. And what I'm going to drop this into the link for everybody who wants it, is I interviewed John. I wrote up his story. I've been impressed since day one. I was happy to help write the award that he got to the nomination to go to get to work from our governor. And it's been an amazing connection since. But his business manager, so the business manager of Ironworkers Local 5, I asked him for a quote. It's up on our website. And I think about this quote nonstop. And I hope it resonates with the audience, and I hope it resonates with Joshua. And for John, I hope it's a reminder to you as well. I asked Aaron Bass, who's the business manager, how did he feel about giving a chance to someone like John? And why would he give a chance to someone like John? And he said, in the Ironworkers Apprenticeship, we're in the business of building careers for people's future, and we don't condemn them for the mistakes of their past. And it has stuck with me ever since. Because apprenticeship works, apprenticeships for everybody. And I have had the distinct opportunity and really the joy to watch John go from a second year apprentice when I met him to a graduate. And Joshua, I'll turn it over to you now. If you got any questions, I'm happy to answer. But if not, I'm happy to sit here and listen to you interview John.
No, great. I want to highlight here, like under Governor Moore and Secretary Wu in Maryland, you all are doing some fantastic things, Chris, and have been doing some fantastic things for a while. So really excited to hear the great work that you're doing. And I'm going to add a +1 onto what you said as apprenticeship as a career pathway, because many times people think that once you get into that apprenticeship, that's it. That's your career for the rest of your life. But it truly is a part of your career pathway. I don't plan on going back and building highways, but if I needed to, I could. But I use that as a way, as a springboard into other opportunities along the way. So I loved how you highlighted that, Chris. It was definitely a great point. Just a real quick follow-up question. I want to give John 10 minutes to talk here. The follow-up is, you talked about some of the things you're doing in Maryland as a national leader and leading as part of the executive team for NASDAD. What have you heard, or have you heard of other states engaging in these same conversations around working with their correctional institution or with the correctional systems, or engaging individuals who've been justice impacted?
Yeah, Joshua, and a lot of our fellow state directors. One of the most amazing things to me about being a part of NASDAD and getting to meet so many state directors, and this goes for our friends at the Office of Apprenticeship as well, the state directors on the federal side, is that really everybody in the system truly is passionate about giving somebody an opportunity, helping. And why I can't point to what each state does with correctional education and with combining the on-the-job training, the registered apprenticeship experience with those who are either incarcerated or recently leaving incarceration. I know there's a lot of work that goes on in it. I constantly see back and forth about establishing programs within the facilities and how do you assist connecting to job seekers. But also I've been a part where we've heard a lot of conversations, and I'm glad you mentioned Governor Moore real quick and Secretary Wu is it has been a nonstop level of activity from them personally, as well as from their administration, on things like how do we reduce barriers, right, in Maryland. And now that gets me to look at other states, like, is a background check required, right? Where can an individual who's incarcerated work? Should incarceration stop you from licensing? And if so, why, right? And let's explore that. Do we have prevailing wage requirements where an individual may not be able to work on that position because of something happened in the past? If so, why, and how do we reduce that barrier? Does it make sense? So when you ask about the other states, well, I can't point to like exactly what Wisconsin might be doing in that field there, or New York, or Alabama. What I can tell you is I see that conversation constantly happening. We see the back and forth between states where they ask for, what is Maryland doing? Share your policy. What is Wisconsin doing? Share your law. And I will say, I think it is the needle is moving all across the country to increase these opportunities.
I love it, Chris. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the hard work you're doing. Thank you for your continued friendship over years and our collaborating work we've done. John, the spotlight's on you, brother. I'd love to bring you into this conversation. I shared at the beginning, my friend John is a in the very same program that Chris. I'm sorry, he wasn't working out. And he's positive of the power of the welcome, my friend. And it's interesting. People will say, hey, your car, you just on break or y'all hanging out? Actually, just for information here, John was supposed to be off today. But as we all know in the apprenticeship world, if someone calls in, your phone is ringing. So, John, we really appreciate you taking the opportunity to still be a part of this conversation, be able to share your story. I would love to give you 10 minutes here to share with our viewers your journey as it began, becoming an apprentice, and how your day-to-day experience evolved through your time as I am.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this story. And as I came into the apprenticeship, I was already 44 years old, and I had just come home from prison after doing 24 years, 1 month, 7 days, 4 months prior to that. So I got locked up in 1995 and came home in 2019. So there was so many different obstacles and hurdles that I was up against, and I wasn't sure of anything except to pray. So I predicate everything off of me praying and putting myself in a position where I wasn't going to fall into the same stupor and stinking way of thinking that caused me to have to go away for 24 years, almost 7 days. So I didn't understand what an apprenticeship was. I didn't have any foreknowledge of apprenticeships because in my immediate area, that's not really an option. You either have a way of being a lyricist, or you have a way of dribbling a basketball, or you're pretty much left to your own devices. So coming home after doing 24 years, almost 7 days, and being able to be in alignment with some people who were familiar with it was of epiphany. I mean, it gave a door that I didn't even know was available to be wide open to me. And, I came home with nothing. In prison, you get paid max, 24 cents an hour. And some prisons, you don't get paid at all. It's free labor. And I didn't come home with anything except, like I said, a sister that had, loved me before I was incarcerated and loved me after I was incarcerated, and facilitated me with a place that is right where I caught my trouble at, though 24 years later. So my sister was hoping that that environment, even though it hadn't changed, that I had changed and I wouldn't fall back into the same, stupor, way of thinking. And, you know, it, through prayer and perseverance and, alignment, with people who, know better, you find yourself, being able to think and be more thoughtful in how you process, how the world works. People say that you are the age that you were when you went in, when you come out. And I can understand how that can be true, because it wasn't until my last relationship that I was just in that I realized that even though I had, accumulated so many things that other people who have been home the whole time hadn't acquired, like, cars and house and, alliances with, like my godfather, Crystal Clan, the instrumental factor in this whole thing playing out, at the age of 50. I'll be 51 this year. Though I didn't realize that I hadn't matured in relationship aspects, even though I had accumulated, things that grown people that are in their 50s and 40s and 30s do acquire. So it humbled me even more, because until you're able to experience something and you're called on to show and prove that you are in possession of that, that you don't know that you don't have that skill set that strengthened. So you know apprenticeship has been the, like you said, it has been the stepping stone, which I've been able to start my own businesses, and I've been able to you know sit in the room with the mayor, what I mean, and talk how apprenticeships work for ex-offenders. And I've been able to, sit, with a lieutenant governor. I've been able to be in places and positions and see things and experience things that if I was just the average Joe Smo, just released from incarceration after doing 24 years and 7 days, I would not be anywhere in that position or in those places or in those times or spaces, without, the Chris McLarens or the, a Joe, Kearns or, the Greg, Armstrongs, or the, president of our local, you know, so, this is instrumental. It changes lives. Apprenticeship changes lives, and it allows you to be able to live in a time, a distance, and a space that you didn't even know was a reality in your realm. It was something that you would see, on the silver screen that Hollywood had, written up. So, I'm at work now, and I called off so I could be a part of this, though someone had, called out, and one thing about being, in the union, it's, creative, union first, family first. I mean, union, and then, but it's the creator over everything. So, there's a, brotherhood, a fellowship that you feel, and you don't want to leave any brother, in the wake, of possible, trial, tribulation, or problem. So, I went on and I took, the 191-mile ride. I mean, and from, my house, to show up, for work, even though I was excused from it. And, that's just a testament that someone who would drive 191 miles just to get to a job site that he had already been given permission to not, show up for, that they would do that, is just a testament, to, what, Chris McLaren does every day. You know what I mean? Where, the unions do every day. They put you in a position where you have a sense of, integrity, and a sense of pride of being a part of a, bigger thing that is productive, and it builds your environment around you. These things you can't find just, you know, uh, bagging groceries, or, sweeping, streets. It's imperative that you have, like yourself, Josh, and, my godfather, in place. This guy, Chris McLaren, I mean, this guy, he really wholeheartedly, mind, body, and soul dedicates his time, distance, and his space, to, what he professes as his, profession. And as I've been able to call him, not just about my issues, but about other people, who have fallen to hard times. And he steps up for everybody. It ain't just me, because because he knows me, and and he respects and honors me like I respect and honor him. Though he takes on that same responsibility to, the masses. So I just really want, that to be, seen and understood, that, this isn't just, a face. Chris McClary, he's really, about his business. I mean, and I think the world of him. I mean, I pray for him constantly. I mean, because without him, I wouldn't be in front of you guys right now. I would have been graduated from the apprenticeship and had a farm and, 16 acres and 8 cars and about to buy another one today and all that. But I wouldn't be sitting in front of you guys today without this guy right here, being a true beacon of hope. You know what I mean? And true beacon, of, patience, and perseverance through trial and tribulation. Because it hasn't been easy. I've been home now, for 6 years. May 21st, I was home 6 years. So trust me, I've had my fair share of, heartaches, through relationships, and, heartaches through just sheer growing pains. But this guy is always available. And I'm not saying he's that for everybody all the time, because he has his own life. He has his own kids that he, values. So,
Wait, man,
he's a
brother,
blessing, my guys.
man, look, I love Chris.
Yeah,
I
man.
like he's great. I want to make sure though, before we get off of here, like I got 2 questions, and we're running short on time, so I got to get these answers from you on these 2 questions, right? Like, number 1, I want you to know, brother, you just skipped over the fact that you just bought a house on like 800 acres. I don't know what you said, but you just kind of
Yeah,
skipped
16
over.
acres, man.
So I
Got
want
the
to,
animals.
I want you to talk about that experience very briefly, what went through. And then lastly, give me 30 seconds of your advice to anyone on this call that's listening that is trying to figure out how to support individuals who've been incarcerated but are trying to engage in apprenticeship. So real quickly, tell me about that process of buying a house and then give me 30 seconds of your advice.
All right. So the house buying process, I've never owned anything. I was homeless when I got locked up. I've been homeless since I was about 8. So I didn't the one thing that when I did come out after doing 24 years with my 7 days, I said, I don't ever want to feel like I'm not valued in a place where I rest my head. So my sister, she loves me to life. She loves me to life, though that is her place. And she allowed me to be there. So I love her and I value and I cherish her place, though I know I needed a place of my own because I was at that time when I came out with 44, but now I've had my house for 2 years now, but I was 48 and nobody wants to be living in.
Oh no, we might have lost. We might have lost him.
So Joshua, what I'll say is, first of all, I just put it in the chat. John's too humble. I'm gonna say that he's an inspiration to anybody that's been justice involved, just like yourself. He has done all the darn work for this, and I mean that. But I think for the audience is why I think I wanted John to roll from what Joshua said from John to me, or from me to John. I mean, is he completed his apprenticeship, and before he was all the way done, he bought his first home. He bought his home on the Eastern Shore, and he commutes all the way to Virginia when the job's in Virginia, which could be a 2-hour commute each way. Does it without fail. The man works. He thanks everybody from his sister to me to God, and it's wonderful. He has done the work, and this is what apprenticeship does. It's what the iron workers did for John. I mean, they put him with the contractor, they gave him the opportunity, and he had to put the work in. And that's the apprenticeship system to me, Joshua. It gives you the opportunity to come from homelessness in prison to a home on a farm. And if we were able to share my phone screen, I would show you the message they sent me and said, I don't know how he phrased it. He said, "Hey, brother, I just want to share pictures of my children with you." And I thought, good Lord, I didn't know you had kids. I felt like a terrible person. And then he sent pictures. He bought 2 cats, two chickens, 2 ducks, and a goose, and started his own little farm. This is the backside of an apprenticeship program, right? It's the backside of that investment of human time and commitment, and the commitment of the iron workers and his contractor. So I hope that helps for the audience, Joshua, and I hope hearing your story and his story combined makes everybody realize just how many opportunities there are for all of us across this beautiful system.
Yeah, no, it's great, Chris. And with this limited time, like, man, hearing his story is powerful, right? Like, I tell my story all the time, and everybody talks about how powerful it is. So for me, I'm just like, it's my story. I lived it. When I get to hear other people's story, I get to sit back and say, wow, like I see what someone sees in me now. Like I see it because I look at John and I'm like, brother, 24 years, homeless, you out of house on a farm. Like, not only that, but just being able to speak glowingly about the work that he's done. And I was really hoping that he could give us 30 seconds, but I'll give that 30 seconds because I mean, me and John are one and the same. Only thing difference is he served 24, I served 10, right? The only thing that, at a 14-year difference, we both kind of have led the same path as we've gone. But my 30-second pitch to anyone on this call that's trying to figure out how to support, how to engage individuals who are justice impacted and getting engaged in registered apprenticeship. Be their support. Help them navigate the systems. Zach asked a great question in there. How can we connect with our state-based apprentice offices across the country? Where do we start? I always say, number one, and Chris hears this, and as a former state director, I always say this, go to the state director and allow the state director to push you down. Now, that isn't always all the things that want to do because you're asking somebody, but they're going to push it down to the individuals who need to get connected. If you're an employer, build your programs. Build your programs to be supportive of individuals who've been incarcerated. If you're an organization and you're working with individuals who've been incarcerated, talk to them, educate them, show them what apprenticeship can be, and then help them go through that process. Make sure they have all the things they need. John, we lost you there for a minute. Give us your 30-second advice real quick, brother. I just gave my 30-second. You give me your 30-second. Then we're going to you.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. My 30-second advice would be pray first, pray second, and be patient third. Prayer, and perseverance, guys. That's what it takes. Prayer, and perseverance, man. And find those who are doing what you were trying to inspire to do, because who else would you learn from? So
No,
thank you, Josh. Thank you, Godfather, Chris McLaren. I love you guys of life. Keep pushing it. It works if you work it. My phone went off because it overheated. I'm sitting in 90-degree weather right here. So, but hey, look, I give it all for the guys, man. I give it all for the team, guys.
no
So, man,
doubt.
I love you guys of life, man. You guys be safe, man.
You as well. Love you as well, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris, not only for your presentation today, but clearly you've created an opportunity. You're a beacon of hope, not only to John, but you're a great friend of mine as well. And I adore you for the great work we've been able to do together. Everyone, I apologize. We went a little bit over, but I really want to wrap this up by saying, thank you, Chris, and thank you, John. Like a sincere thank you for taking the time out today. John, thank you for parking in 90-degree heat, brother, and just being able to sit still and have that conversation. I'm confident, I'm very confident that the info that was shared today is going to lead to deeper conversations and deeper understandings of the many resources that are accessible to individuals who have a conviction history. Like before we adjourn, I'd like to ask our viewers to use this QR code on the final slide on the screen to complete our survey and let us know your feedback from today. Listen, I always talk about this. Don't just tell me if everything was great. That's good. I want to hear, what would you like to hear more about? What didn't you understand? What can we go a little more in depth about? Give that feedback. That helps us get better at the JCC. And as always, if you haven't done so, follow us on all social media. And please remember to share the opportunity to join the JCC with your circle. Finally, I encourage everyone in the JCC to check out the newly released tools of the Game Advocacy Toolkit. You'll find it on the JCC website, and we encourage you to share it with your networks as we work together for collective impact. Stay tuned to our social media and the listserv for upcoming announcements of how you can engage with the table. I'm going to close out with this because I close out this everything I talk about apprenticeship. If you've heard me speak across the country, if you see me online, or if you see me in person when I'm on stage, I close it out with this, and I pay homage to my very good friend, Karen Morgan, who was the state director of apprenticeship for 30 years and was my predecessor. There are good ships and wood ships and ships that sail the sea, but the best ships are apprenticeships, and may they always be. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of the week, everybody.